Hello, and welcome to Tales for Life. In each episode of this podcast, we'll explore a folk or fairy tale from a different culture or region and discover the life lessons, values, and morals they offer that we can use today. Join me on the journey through the magical and meaningful world of folk and fairy tales. Welcome back to another episode of Tales for Life, the podcast that journeys through life one tale at a time. Today's episode is going to take a look at the best way to keep moving forward in life, and I've titled it, "It is your beliefs that hold you back, or move you forward." Regardless of your definition of success, it seems like there's always someone achieving it that makes you wonder, how? How did that person get that house, or that much money, or that relationship, or whatever? Why is that person successful when it seems like someone else, who may have tried harder or is more deserving, wasn't? Is there some magic formula? Well, no. And yes. Many times, the difference between achieving or not is belief. Do you believe you can? Are you not sure? Are you pretty certain you can't? Henry Ford is often quoted as saying, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." Which is to say that the most important factor in getting what you're after isn't your talent level, your income, your looks, or your amount of effort. The most important factor is your belief. As new agey as this line of thought might be, it really isn't. Believing in yourself has been a valued principle long before modern motivational quotes became popular. And nearly 200 years ago, the importance of self-belief was captured in a German folktale known as The Brave Flute Player. Once upon a time, there was a merry musician who played the flute masterfully. He earned his keep by traveling about the world playing his flute in villages and towns. One evening, he came to a tenant farm and spent the night there because he wouldn't have been able to reach the next village before nightfall. He was kindly received by the farmer, ate with him, and after the meal was over, he played a few pieces. When the musician had done this, he looked out of the window and, by the light of the moon, saw at a short distance an old castle which was lying partly in ruins. "What is that old castle?" he asked the farmer, "and who owned it?" The farmer said that many years ago a count had lived there who was very rich, but also very stingy. He had greatly tormented his subjects and had never given alms to the poor. Out of stinginess, he never married, and he finally died without an heir. His closest relatives wanted to take possession of any inheritance, but they could not find any money at all. It was thus claimed that he must have buried the treasure, and that still today it may lie hidden in the old castle. Many people had gone into the old castle to seek the treasure, but none of them ever came out again. For this reason, the authorities had forbidden entry into this old castle and had seriously warned everyone in the whole country about it. The musician listened carefully, and when the farmer had finished his account, the musician said that he himself had a great desire to go into the castle, for he was courageous and knew no fear. The farmer begged him most urgently to spare his young life and not go into the castle. But begging and pleading didn't help. The musician was determined. Finally, two of the farmer's servants lit a pair of lanterns and accompanied the eager musician to the old castle. He sent them back with one of the lanterns, but he took the second one in his hand and boldly climbed a high flight of stairs. At the top of the stairs, he came into a large hall with doors all around it. He opened the first door and went inside, where he sat down at an old-fashioned table. He put his lantern on it and played his flute. The farmer, however, could not sleep the whole night for sheer worries. He often looked out of the window and was very happy whenever he heard his guest playing music over there. When the clock on the wall struck 11 and the flute stopped playing, he was terribly frightened, for he now believed that the ghost or the devil or whoever else lived in this castle had definitely wrung the neck of the good flute player. However, the musician had purposefully stopped his flute playing without being afraid. He finally got hungry because he hadn't eaten much at the farmer's. He paced up and down the room and looked around. Then he saw a pot full of uncooked lentils, and on another table stood a vessel full of water, one full of salt, and a bottle of wine. He quickly poured water over the lentils, salted them, and made a fire in the stove because there was plenty of wood at hand. Then he made lentil soup for himself. While the lentils were cooking, he drank the bottle of wine and then played the flute again. When the lentils were cooked, he pulled them from the fire, poured them into the bowl already on the table, and ate hungrily. Then he looked at his watch, and it was nearly 11 o'clock. Suddenly, the door opened, and two tall men entered, carrying a bier on which a coffin stood. Without saying a word, they placed the bier in front of the musician, who did not allow himself to be disturbed while he was eating. Then they went out the door just as silently as they had come in. After they had gone away, the musician quickly got up and opened the coffin. Lying inside was an old man, small and weazened, with gray hair and a gray beard. The lad was not afraid. He took the body out and put it by the stove. It had scarcely warmed up when it began to come to life. The musician then gave him lentils to eat, carefully tending the little man, even feeding him like a mother would her child. Then the little man became very lively and spoke to him. "Follow me." The little man went ahead, and the lad took his lantern and fearlessly followed. The little man led him down a steep, dilapidated staircase until they both came to a deep, horrible vault. A large pile of money was lying there. The little man commanded the lad, "Divide this pile into 2 equal parts, but if anything is left over, I'll kill you." The lad just smiled and then began to count the money back and forth between 2 large tables. In a short time, he thus had divided the money into 2 equal parts. But in the end, there was still 1 kreutzer left over. The musician considered this for a moment. He took out his pocket knife, placed the blade against the kreutzer, and chiseled it in 2 with a hammer that was lying nearby. He then threw 1/2 on the first pile and the other half on the other pile. The little man became very cheerful and said, "You heavenly man, you have redeemed me. For 100 years, and until someone would succeed in dividing the money into 2 equal parts, I have had to guard the treasure which I scraped together out of stinginess. No one has succeeded, and I had to strangle them all. 1 pile of money is now yours, but you must divide the rest among the poor. Divine man, you have redeemed me." With that, the little man disappeared. The lad climbed back upstairs to his previous room and then played merry little pieces on his flute. The farmer was happy to hear him playing again. Early in the morning he went to the castle, because anyone was allowed inside during the day, and he received the lad full of joy. The lad told him the story, then he went down to his treasure. He did just as the little man had commanded and gave half to the poor. He had the old castle torn down, and soon a new one stood on the previous spot, where the musician now lived as a rich man. This particular tale is one of many variants of this type of tale, but it so perfectly illustrates how the power of belief in what you're doing and in yourself can lead to extraordinary outcomes. There are a couple of key lessons for us to take from this tale that I just want to highlight. The first key here is that belief gives you courage and self-confidence. The flute player had no idea what was in the castle or why the people who had gone before him had never been seen again. But it didn't stop him. His belief gave him the fortitude to try. And as we saw in the tale, that was the boost his life needed to become a rich man. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the farmer. Like the flute player, he had no idea what was in the castle or why people had disappeared in there. But in this case, he lacked belief in his ability to succeed. This lack of belief kept him, and many others, from even trying. Or, put another way, their belief in themselves not succeeding indeed kept them from doing so. And that's where we need to be careful as well. Not even trying is actually worse than trying and not succeeding. In fact, not trying is the only guaranteed way in life of not succeeding at anything. Last, and far from least, this tale provides us with a vital clue to success. And if you take nothing else from this tale, consider this. With belief, whatever resources, effort, and/or fortitude you need, you'll get it. For the flute player, his firm belief granted him the power to succeed where others had not. It had nothing to do with how much money he had, where or to whom he was born, or any other factors outside of his control. It was all his belief. And that's an encouraging thought for all of us. As we wrap up this episode, let's carry these key lessons with us. Belief in yourself and your goals can give you the courage and confidence to tackle even the most daunting challenges, including ones where others have failed. Remember, like the brave flute player, it's not about where you come from or what you have. It's about believing in your ability to succeed. So, next time you're faced with a challenge, think of this tale and let your belief be the driving force that helps you overcome any obstacles. Keep believing in yourself and striving for greatness. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Tales for Life.